They dragged him into the mansion like a criminal. A hawker, barefoot and bruised with a bleeding nose. On the desk between them sat an envelope swollen with cash. Chief Adebanjo's voice cut the silence like a blade. "Take 10 million naira and leave my daughter forever." The words hung heavy, but before Ao could answer, the story of how he got there began long before this night. On a scorching Lagos afternoon, cars blared horns, impatient drivers cursed, and the air shimmered with heat. Among the swarm of hawkers weaving between lanes, one young man stood out, not because of what he sold, but because of how he carried himself. His name was Ao. He wore a faded shirt and patched shoes, but his back was straight, his gaze steady. He wasn't just selling bottled water. He was fighting for survival, for his siblings, his sick mother, and for a dream the world had tried to bury. That same afternoon, in the back seat of a chauffeur-driven SUV, sat Amara, daughter of Chief Adebanjo, one of the wealthiest men in the country. Beautiful, pampered, but restless. Tired of bodyguards, tired of her father's rules. And then it happened. Her SUV slowed in traffic, and her eyes locked with Ao's. Just a glance. Just a heartbeat. But in that chaos, something began that neither wealth nor poverty could contain. She rolled down her tinted window, ignoring the disapproving glance of her driver, and bought water from him. But it wasn't the exchange of money that mattered. It was the way he said thank you. Not like a beggar, not like a servant, but like a man who still carried pride even when the world tried to strip it away. From that day, she noticed him more. Every time her father's car crawled through traffic, she searched the crowd of hawkers until she found his familiar figure darting between bumpers. And every time their eyes met, her heart skipped. Weeks passed. Amara made excuses to drive that same route, hoping to catch glimpses of him. And Ao, though surprised by her attention, found himself looking out for her too. When her SUV appeared, his face lit up. He felt an energy that lifted the weight of his daily struggles. One day, when her father was away on business, Amara convinced her driver to pull over. She stepped out, under the shocked stares of passers-by, and approached the hawker. She asked his name. He told her. She asked about his life, and he shared little pieces, his mother, his siblings, his dreams. And she listened, wide-eyed, because no one in her privileged world had ever spoken so honestly, so humbly, yet with such fire. What began as curiosity turned into secret meetings. Amara would sneak away from her father's mansion, slipping through the nights, just to see Ao. And Ao, though he knew the danger, couldn't stop himself either. Amara wasn't just a rich man's daughter. She was kind, attentive, and saw him for more than his ragged clothes. With her, he felt human again, not invisible. But whispers travel fast in Lagos. Soon, the chief's driver noticed. The bodyguards grew suspicious. And before long, word reached Chief Adebanjo himself. The chief was a man of iron reputation. He had built an empire from oil, politics, and ruthless ambition. To him, everything had a price. Everything could be bought, sold, or silenced. When he heard that his only daughter had been sneaking into the streets to meet a hawker, his blood boiled with so much anger. He called Amara into his study. He didn't shout. He didn't scold. He simply stared at her with the coldness of a man who was betrayed by his daughter. She tried to explain, to tell him Ao was different, but her words bounced off him. To Chief Adebanjo, this wasn't love. It was a rebellion. So he devised a plan. One evening, he ordered his men to bring Ao to his office. Not as a guest, not as a suitor, but as a beggar being granted an audience. The guards smirked as they escorted the hawker inside, his worn-out shoes clicking awkwardly against polished marble floors. Amara wasn't there. This was between men, between the empire and the street. Chief Adebanjo leaned back in his leather chair, watching Ao with eyes sharp enough to cut. He saw not just a poor boy, but a threat to his legacy. And threats, in his world, were not tolerated. On the desk between them sat a brown envelope. Thick, heavy, stuffed with cash. The chief tapped it once. "This," he said, "is 10 million naira." Enough to feed your family, build a house, and start a business.
Take it.
And leave my daughter forever." The words hung in the air. Ao's heart pounded. 10 million. More money than he could ever dream of. With it, he could rescue his mother from sickness, send his siblings to school, escape the chains of poverty. It was a lifeline dangled before a drowning man. But at what cost? If he took the money, he would lose Amara. He would betray the one person who saw him not as a hawker, but as a man. Yet if he refused, he would face the wrath of a billionaire who could crush him with a snap of his fingers. Ao's lips trembled. His palms sweated. He looked at the envelope, then at the cold, expectant eyes of Chief Adebanjo. He knew whatever choice he made tonight would define not just his life, but Amara's too. The clock ticked. The chief leaned forward. And in that suffocating silence, Ao opened his mouth, but words couldn't come out. The silence in Chief Adebanjo's study was thick enough to choke on. The air smelled of cigars and power. Between him and Ao sat a brown envelope, fat with cash. "Take it," the chief said smoothly. 10 million naira. No one will judge you. This is more than you'll ever earn in your lifetime. Ao's heart pounded. He imagined his mother coughing in their one-room home, his siblings crying in the dark, hungry and hopeless. This money could save them all. But then Amara's eyes flashed in his mind, eyes that saw him as more than a hawker. Could he betray that? He clenched his fists. "I don't want your money." The words trembled but rang true. Chief Adebanjo's face hardened. He shoved the envelope across the desk like a dare, but Ao didn't touch it. That night, he walked out empty-handed, guards sneering as he passed. His chest burned with fear, yet his heart carried a strange freedom. But Chief Adebanjo was not a man who forgave defiance. Within days, Ao's world collapsed. Thugs swarmed his usual spot in traffic, threatening violence. Suppliers refused him credit. The small kiosk his family depended on burned to ashes overnight. Strange phone calls came, warning him to give up. His family sank into hunger, and his mother's health worsened without medicine. The neighborhood buzzed with whispers. Some praised Ao's courage. Others mocked him for throwing away fortune. But praise did not put food on the table. Meanwhile, Amara was trapped in her father's mansion. Her phone was seized, her movements watched. She begged him to stop destroying Ao's life. Chief Adebanjo only laughed. "Love cannot feed you," he said coldly. "Love cannot build an empire. One day you'll thank me." But Amara's heart refused to bend. She smuggled out messages through a loyal maid, short notes of hope that reached Ao rarely, yet kept him alive. One evening, as Ao sat by the ruins of their kiosk, a sleek black SUV stopped before him. A man in a suit stepped out, dropped a thick envelope on his lap, and drove away. On top lay a note. "Last chance. Take it or watch your family suffer." Ao's hands shook as he opened it. Stacks of cash gleamed in the streetlight. 10 million again. He imagined food, medicine, school uniforms, dignity restored. Hunger clawed at his stomach, begging him to take it. But Amara's voice echoed in his mind. "I believe in you, Ao. You are more than what the world calls you." Tears stung his eyes. With a heavy breath, he slammed the envelope shut. The messenger sneered, calling him a fool, before driving into the night. Ao had chosen again. But the war was far from over. Instead of bowing, Ao found odd jobs, hauling loads in the market, washing cars, carrying bricks. His hands bled, his back ached, but each coin he earned with sweat reminded him he hadn't been broken. Amara, watching from her prison of marble walls, waited for a chance. That chance came one night during a grand party at the Adebanjo mansion. As music and laughter echoed, she slipped away from the glittering hall, heart pounding, and rushed to the back gate. There, waiting in the shadows, was Ao. Their reunion was fire and storm. They embraced, trembling, whispering promises never to let go. For the first time in weeks, they felt alive. And then the guards saw them. They tore Ao from her arms, dragging him across the courtyard. In front of stunned guests, They beat him until blood stained his shirt. Amara's screams pierced the night. Chief Adebanjo stepped forward, his voice thunderous. "This is the last time. Next time, I will bury him." The crowd fell silent. Amara collapsed in tears. Ao, half conscious, was thrown onto the ground like garbage. That night, Amara wept until her eyes swelled. Aoli in a crowded hospital ward, broken but unyielding. The war for love had begun. The city did not sleep that night. In one corner, a hawker lay broken in a hospital bed, fighting for his life. In another, a billionaire's daughter drowned in tears inside her father's mansion. Two hearts, worlds apart, yet chained together by love and defiance. Ao's body was battered, but his spirit refused to bow. He knew he could not fight a titan forever. Yet fate had other plans. News of Chief Adebanjo's cruelty spread like wildfire. Guests at the mansion whispered to journalists. Blogs and social media erupted with outrage. The billionaire who beat his daughter's lover trended nationwide. Human rights groups condemned him. Protesters swarmed his businesses. Politicians who once courted him quietly cut ties. For the first time, Adebanjo's empire shook. Amara seized the moment. She stormed into her father's office, where he sat hunched over reports of crashing shares. "Father," she said firmly, "I will not marry anyone you choose. My heart belongs to Ao. Destroy him, and you destroy me." He slammed his fist. "You are my daughter. You will not throw your life away on a hawker." Amara stood tall. "Then watch your empire burn, because I will not betray my heart." For the first time, he saw not a child, but a woman who would rather lose everything than surrender love. Destiny twisted again. At Ao's hospital bed appeared an elderly philanthropist, a businessman once ruined by Adebanjo's ruthless deals. Moved by Ao's refusal of 10 million naira, he offered him a scholarship and later a role in his company. Step by step, Ao transformed. He studied, worked, and proved himself. The hawker, who once chased cars in Lagos traffic, grew into a man of vision. His rise was slow, forged in sweat and sleepless nights, but it was real. Meanwhile, Adebanjo's downfall deepened. Contracts evaporated. Allies vanished. The man who once ruled with iron fists felt the sting of isolation. Then came the day that broke him. At a high-level meeting, desperate to salvage what was left, Adebanjo entered the boardroom, only to freeze. Sitting at the table, in a tailored suit, was Ao. Executives nodded respectfully to the young man. Cameras clicked. The hawker had become a power in his own right. The meeting began. Adebanjo tried to dominate, but Ao's voice was calm, measured, brimming with knowledge. The same hands that once carried bottled water now signed contracts worth millions. Afterward, Adebanjo cornered him. Fury and shame burned in his eyes. "You think you've won? This changes nothing." Ao met his gaze quietly. "I don't need to win. I only need to live true and love your daughter without shame." The billionaire staggered back, speechless. For the first time, he realized money could build empires, but it could not buy love, respect, or loyalty. The final blow came when Amara stood beside Ao at a public charity event. Facing the cameras, she declared, "Love is not about wealth or status. It is about seeing worth where others see nothing. My father tried to buy our hearts, but some things are not for sale." Applause thundered. Chief Adebanjo, watching from the shadows, felt the weight of truth crash upon him. Stripped of power, humbled by loss, he began to reflect. Weeks later, one quiet evening, he visited Ao's modest home. Amara was there, her hand in Ao's. "I was wrong," Adebanjo said, his voice breaking. "I thought love was weakness. But it is the only strength that lasts. If you'll allow me, I wish to know my daughter's happiness and the man who fought for it." Silence. Then Ao stood and extended his hand. For a long moment, pride battled shame, until finally, with trembling fingers, Adebanjo took it. In that handshake, years of cruelty began to heal. Not long after, Ao and Amara were wed. Their story, born in Lagos traffic, tested by pride and power, ended not in ruin, but in redemption.